how did the strong, resilient economy that Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia talked about crumble in the space of, let's say, 6 months? I mean, they were waxing lyrical about how strong this economy was and things have never been so good for Ghana. I mean, how come within 6 months of just a coronavirus pandemic, the whole economy has collapsed completely? We are facing the worst economic situation probably in the entire history of, I wouldn't even say probably, in the entire history of the Fourth Republic. The economy has never been this bad. And you see, when you have a hole and you're hiding it, you understand? Eventually, when reality catches up, you will find that that hole will be exposed. There's been a hole in this economy, and I've kept saying it. This is not the first time I'm going to say it. The finance minister, who is the cousin of the president, has been cooking the books since 2017. He has this way of, and it's the first time we're having this strange presentation of budget. Our budget numbers from 1992 to date are the budget numbers for everybody, for Parliament, for the International Donor Organization, for everybody. And those are the numbers that are presented to the world. This finance minister comes and he has liabilities, big ones. Instead of calculating them and putting them in the budget, he brings them to the bottom and puts them at footnotes. And so he doesn't factor them in the budget. And so he can give you a deficit number that looks good. He can give you a debt to GDP ratio that looks good. You know, he can give you, all his other fiscal statistics that look good. But as soon as you add the liabilities, one was the financial sector clean-out, and two is the energy sector debt. The energy sector debt, today he owes the independent power producers alone $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion. Those are the figures he's now put in the budget that are showing the kinds of numbers that are, and so he's been engaged in subterfuge. And sometimes very criminal subterfuge. I'll give you another example. In 2019, they didn't meet the domestic revenue target. You know what Oforiatta did? He made GRA go and borrow money from commercial banks and presented it and said, we met the revenue target. So when coronavirus struck, the commercial banks have been deducting the loan that they gave to show good figures for 2019. That is why the economy is worse than it is, because any revenue that comes, the commercial banks are taking their money back. And so some of these things have been very criminal, and I'm surprised that Professor Ade, as chairman of GRA, could connive to do something as criminal as this. The president knows about it. He's done nothing about it, And so yes, the economy is in a bad state. We handed him a much better economy. Growth had been projected at 8% for 2017. They had nothing to do with that growth. It had been projected. World Bank, IMF had all said that in 2018 the economy was going to grow at 8% because of the work that we had done in 2017, because of the work that we had done in 2016. I left him $300 million in the stabilization fund for a day such as this when Corona struck. And the stabilization fund is used to ameliorate economic shocks. And so I left him $300 million in that fund. I left him $270 million in the sinking fund, so that when the COFOR Eurobond became due, there'll be money to pay for it. I left him $270 million in the Ghana Infrastructure Investments Fund. I left him 2 new oil fields, revenue from 2 new oil fields. All the development of infrastructure that I did in this country in my 4 years as president was with only the Jubilee field, 1 oil field. And even then, 1 oil field, there was a problem with the FPSO turret, and so they had to reduce production. And so he's got 3, 4, 5 times more oil revenue in his period than I got. But what is there to show for it? Virtually nothing. And look at the kind of figures you're talking about. Debt service and wages are more than 143% of domestic revenue. How could this have happened? It couldn't have happened overnight. So it means that they were criminally, hiding the true state of the economy from Ghanaians. And then coronavirus comes and they suddenly say, oh, this is the state of the economy, it's in a mess. But how did we end here? You said, yet Sika so come there. Where is the Sika? Are we not still sitting on that money? Where is the gold? And the worst thing is that you kind of try to surreptitiously, take our gold royalties, get your family to get involved and set up some company in a tax haven and mortgage our gold royalties for the next 15 years for $500 million. And I've said that they've created a vortex, and the vortex is swallowing money like anything. If that 500 million had come, it wouldn't have done anything, won't get anything tangible for it. It would have just been swallowed in his dead vortex. It's time to get him out. Get all the, level-headed people in this country to sit around the economy and fix it. I faced a problem with the economy as a result of the single spine. The single spine was inherited from the Kufuor administration, and President Mills, started to deal with it. At the time, Governor Dufour was the finance minister. And so we did the negotiations until 2012. And then 2012, we started paying the single spine plus the arrears. And so in 2012, we were spending more than 73% of total revenue on wages and compensation alone, and had only 23%, 27% of revenue left for everything, goods and services, capital expenditure, everything, And so we've been faced with something like that before. What did we do? We called the Senchi Forum. You remember Senchi Forum? PV Obing was very active in that. We wanted to achieve consensus behind our economic program. So we invited all the stakeholders. Everybody was there. The only people who refused to attend were the New Patriotic Party. They actually issued a caveat that any of their members who attended would be sanctioned severely. And so some of them had accepted to come, but at the last minute, because of the party sanction, how unpatriotic can you be? So they refused to come. But we held the Senchi Forum. Out of the Senchi Forum came our homegrown fiscal consolidation policy. And eventually that became the basis for our negotiations with the IMF, which led to the program that we went into. Because by the time we left office in 2016, I'll tell you this, most Ghanaians don't know, we financed the budget from our own revenues. We didn't borrow one CD from the central bank. The first time in Ghana's history. Everything that we financed the budget with in 2016, we did zero central bank financing. This had put the economy on a platform where, if the incoming administration and Nado's administration had taken over with the additional oil revenues and things, we would have just continued fiscal consolidation with growth. And you would have felt the prosperity within the system. Instead, they jettisoned everything and decided to go on their own track. This finance minister, you know what he's interested in? All he's interested in is going on the bond market and borrowing money, because he benefits from it indirectly. His company is at the bottom of borrowing all these Euro bonds. He's borrowed $9 billion from the bond market in 4 years. And every bond he floats, Data Bank makes money out of it through proxies and other things, And so this is clearly conflict of interest. The president knows about this, and that's why he says, I'm too old to be corrupt. I'm not going to steal your money, because he knew his relatives would steal the money for him. And that's exactly what's happening. He can go to a plush retirement because of Oyata and Gabi and everybody will look after him. Mamti and Co will all look after him. And so, yes, we have a broken economy, but it's time for the person who broke it to leave so that somebody can come and fix it.
Now, sir, you use some methods to deal with similar situation when you came to power. Are those methods still usable? And if they're not, how do you intend to tackle this huge monumental economic problems that face us?
Because it's like your own family budget and your own family economy. Yourself and my sweetheart and the children, you form an economic unit. When you're highly indebted and your income is low, what do? One, you cut expenditure, and then you reprofile your debt so that it gives you a little more breathing space to be able to deal with the debt. By the time we end this year, our debt to GDP will be 80%. And let me explain that to your viewers. If Kwesi is worth, let's say, 100,000 Ghana cedis, you're worth 100,000 Ghana cedis, but your debt as a percentage of it means your building, your car, your house, your income that you make from your work, everything is 100,000 Ghana cedis a year. And yet your debt as a percentage of your total worth is 80%. It means you are broke. It means you have just 20% to maneuver with, because 80% of your total value is mortgaged in debt. And so, one, you need to reprofile your debt so that you get some breathing space to be able to do the investments that are necessary to get out of it. Now, one of the things that we could do to keep social and economic infrastructure still going is to use the new style of borrowing that we introduced. That is to borrow on a certain collateralized basis. For instance, we set up the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. Now that fund was to take a percentage of VAT and a percentage of oil revenues, and it was going to become the investment vehicle for developing social and economic infrastructure. So we put seed money of 270 million in that fund, and there were supposed to be inflows there. And based on that collateralization, we could borrow money in order to do the critical developmental projects that we needed. That was a new idea that came. Terminal 3. We did it off the balance sheet of Ghana Airport Company. We used to take 60% of their airport passenger levy. And so I said, build us a new terminal. And they said, oh, okay, we can build you a new terminal, but give us our passenger levy, and we'll use it to collateralize and build a new terminal. And they did. Gapoha. They said, look, this port is congested, we need a new port. It says, what do we do? It says, okay, see your partners, Meridian Port Services, and take the debts on your collective balance sheets and build a new port. Today we have a brand new port, the most efficient in the whole of West Africa. You know, so there are ways of doing things, you know, that we are time tested. We have come out of this kind of hole before, and we have the people who can be able to work to get us out of this hellhole. But the first thing is to stop those who are doing damage to the economy. And then when you have stopped them from wrecking the economy further, then you can rescue the economy. This is a rescue mission. You know, Ghana is going in the wrong direction. Nana Akufo-Addo, with all the promise and the expectations that people had, has been a very sad disappointment. You know, and I find it very callous of them to say they fulfilled all their promises. They say, so we fulfilled our promises to the people. Every district I've gone to ask, do you have any of the factories here? It says, no, we don't have anything. You know, has there been any development? What development has taken place in your district over the last 4 years? It says nothing. It says the electrification you were doing, they've discontinued it. You build our road halfway, where you got to 4 years now, the road has been abandoned. I mean, these are a litany of stories all over. And yet, you know, the thing about MPP is they are good at talk. A lot of talk, plenty talk, but no action, you know. And so if you follow their propaganda and their talk, you think that Ghana is some rosy paradise. But we're sinking lower and lower. That survey was done recently, and the majority of Ghanaians said they feel worse off today than they were in 2016. And that is a fact. You know, cost of living has gone up, incomes have gone down. If you go to the yam area, the price of the yam market has collapsed, and so the price of yam, you know, is not giving an economic rate of return to the farmers. And so the fear is that if we don't do something about it, a time will come the farmers cannot even just, you know, continue the supply of yams to the market.
Well, viewers and listeners, at this point we'd like to take a short break. We are in conversation with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.